So I spent a lot of time thinking and working about entrepreneurship education, particularly in communities of color. So Mandela, first I want to congratulate you on the amazing work that you're doing. It's the first time I've been exposed to this work, but it will not be my last, and you will be hearing from me. I was in a session, and I want to ask you about a couple of things, both of you, infusion and immersion. So I've just spent a couple of days in training with 60 of my colleagues, being trained in entrepreneurship education, design thinking, many of the topics that we talked about this week that you touched on today as well. We're an institution, we're a college, and we're trying to infuse education across, entrepreneurship across our curriculum. So I wondered what possibilities you might see, or what conversations, Mandela, you might have had in the higher education community that we could think about ways to infuse and immerse. Because our students want jobs. And we have a lot of students from immigrant communities whose parents send them to school. They're the first time to come to college. They want them on a pathway that's straight. They want to be a doctor, a lawyer, a nurse, Indian chief. They want something that they can see and understand. And entrepreneurship is murky for a lot of people, and it's messy. So what do you think? How can you, in your work, how have you been able to make the case, or what are some ways in which you think higher ed could also, and K-12 for that matter, do a better job at integrating entrepreneurship a lot earlier?
Yeah, so thank you for having me. I was just here. Hello again. This is the swift transition. There's a lot I would say. I think higher ed in particular is ripe for disruption. I think a lot of people are looking for alternative forms of certification, looking for alternative ways to express their intelligence, express their skill sets, express their potential. Has anyone ever heard of a MOOC, a massive online open course? Has anyone ever heard of Coursera? Udacity, Udemy, those are MOOCs, right? So a lot of people are also turning to online resources in which to demonstrate their abilities in a certain content area. So we've seen a lot of growth in that, but there's also benefits to having your traditional college experience, right? Where you have a campus to report to, you have clubs to join. There's so much about education that doesn't necessarily take place in a classroom. So I'm not necessarily in favor of like going all online yet. I do believe in the importance of human connection. But I think the case I make to answer your other question about entrepreneurship and how we can more, I guess, swiftly penetrate it through all experiences of education, particularly in higher ed, is just understanding that our motto is no talk, all action. I think in courses you get a lot of theory, you get a lot of case studies, but at our events what happens is you actually just do it. You learn so much by just doing it. We just had the founder of Duolingo. Has anyone ever heard of that app? Duolingo, it's like one of the most...
Learn another language really quickly?
Yeah, so it was actually voted the best iTunes app of the year last year. And we had him come speak at our event in Pittsburgh just this past Friday. And his advice to entrepreneurs, which I'm just going to extend to you guys, is to just do it. You can toss the idea around in your head over and over again, but it doesn't matter. An idea is just an idea. It's all about the execution. It's all about being able to recruit other people into your vision and enlist them in it. So I would say the biggest case we've made for the work we're doing on college campuses is the ability we have to give you guys an opportunity to really get your hands dirty and to learn by doing it. It's completely experiential learning.
I agree with you, and we've done youth entrepreneurship programs at the Entrepreneurial Center in the past, and even though students come to us out of that program having already been exposed to entrepreneurship education, but without the opportunity to actually apply it, and it wasn't real for them until they actually had to spend a summer working in their own business versus going to a job. I know you've probably seen that too in schools. Felecia,
yes.
with Code Fever, what has been your experience, and what thoughts might you have about ways to accelerate, integrate, and just immerse entrepreneurship in education?
Absolutely. So yeah, I see it all the time. And I think we are starting too late when we start talking about entrepreneurship. I think that I start hearing that conversation in high school, usually college. I talked to a professor that, the VP of school close to here in Miami. I won't throw it out there. But he was talking to me about all their students that come in, they want to be entrepreneurs when they first start. First day, they all have a plan. They want to open up a restaurant once they graduate. By the time they get ready to graduate, they're just trying to find a job. And he's like, how do we keep that momentum going, keep that excitement going about becoming an entrepreneur and owning your own thing through our curriculum? And I think for too long, we've kept entrepreneurship classes completely different than everything else, right? You're either going to be an entrepreneur, but hey, if you are really interested in art, there's no entrepreneurship curriculum a part of it. And that's a huge problem, because that's why, in 2008 and 2009, we were graduating students, and then they couldn't find jobs, and they were freaking out, and they were moving back home, and they didn't know how to be self-sustainable with the knowledge that they were gaining. So I say it all the time, like, we are bragging about being in a knowledge economy right now, and I keep saying that's nothing to brag about. We need to be bragging about that we are in an applied knowledge economy, so that our students are graduating with the tools that they need to add value into any situation that they walk into. Any situation. And if you find yourself in a situation where you've lost your job or you want to start your own thing, it's not hard to start a business with all the technology that we have. You just have to be very curious, very resourceful, and use every resource that you have on your campus, because the people are here to help you.
I want to amplify 2 points that you raised. Mandela, you mentioned that certainly education benefits the entrepreneur, and yesterday we had the founder of Socially Buzz here, who decided to forego college and has built a company from $0 to $2 million without the benefit of higher education. Now he's in our Goldman Sachs program, and he's like, I wonder how I did so much without knowing all the stuff I'm learning now. So I think there's a benefit to both things going for higher education and for doing it now, and that's the culture that we're trying to create here at Miami-Dade College. Opportunities for our students to understand that they can do it now. But Mandela, I wanted to ask you specifically, you mentioned children with learning differences and the exciting schools that are opening up in Oakland. I find, this is my personal opinion, not the opinion of Miami-Dade College, but we have wonderful choices in Miami-Dade County Public Schools. You can go to school to learn about anything you want. But we spend a lot less time, I think, focused on how children learn and kind of putting students all on one pathway to how you learn. And you spoke about students with learning differences and why does it have to look the same way, and being aware and savvy about how to use education policy to change the model of how education is delivered. Can you talk a little bit about how you guys got turned on to that at all?
Yeah, I think a big part of it is that I came from the education space. So my professional career started as a teacher in South Central, with dealing with students with a variety of backgrounds and needs and greatness and all the things that come with such a diverse community. And so I think I brought to the organization a bit of empathy for the experience of an educator. Also, when I went to be a school administrator, I had that experience. So when I'm developing the programming and thinking about how we can make it better, a huge part of what was a mandate for me to take the job was that we mandate that educators, including those in the classroom as well as those kind of leading policy, are involved in our event. So it's actually mandatory that educators, policymakers from the local community are there and are engaging in this very early stage innovation process. Because currently things in education are so siloed, where you have the teachers in the classroom, you have the policymakers either in the state capitals or in Washington, and there's two different conversations happening about what's wrong with education and how to fix it. What we're recognizing is that all of these decision makers and these stakeholders need to be involved in the innovation process from the beginning. So even if there are policymakers coming to our event and just coaching or judging, they're getting that exposure. And I think that's what you were talking about, this exposure piece to thinking differently and having a safe space to do so. Because oftentimes in the traditional school setting, it's actually a bit intimidating sometimes to push back on the status quo, right? We've all kind of bought into this system, but why? Why not push back? Why not think differently? So I think, again, what's unique about what we're trying to do is create that safe space for people to come together with other like-minded dreamers and doers and just, again, link up with complementary skill sets and do it. So, again, I think a big part of whether you're being considered of people with learning disabilities, minority students, all different types of learners, is by making sure you have diverse participants there. They know that experience. They're going to talk about that experience. So that's something we're really working on.
Thank you both. And you'll see some folks here with orange shirts. They're from a group called the Greater Miami Service Corps, which is an alternate learning opportunity for what we call opportunity youth, ages 16 to 24, who have, for whatever reason, realize their full potential in a traditional school. Had, challenges and circumstances that traditional schools, but Greater Miami Service Corps, they get a job, they get education. It's a very well-rounded experience. They apply the knowledge that they learn, so they're a very strong partner with us as well. So I want to encourage you and thank you both for your talk today. I know we have a very limited amount of time, but I want you to just tell our students and leave our audience with one thought about knowing that they have everything they need. It's like Dorothy, you had the power all along. What can we tell them to get started right now?
Oh man, so 30 years ago when Oprah had the fro, some of you guys don't remember that, but some of you do. 30 years ago when Oprah was first starting, she had a fro. Twitter didn't even exist yet, right? It was just a sound. Facebook hadn't been invented yet, right? Mark Zuckerberg wasn't even born yet. Foursquare was a parking space. LinkedIn was a prison. The apple was still something that we ate and not something that we're constantly typing on and using. So if she was able to do those things, and we kind of look at her as a pinnacle of success, and we have our Oprah here for today, right? If she was able to do those things without the technology that we have today, then you guys have absolutely no excuse. The only one that's standing in the way of you following your dreams is you, right? So where everyone in this room has had challenges and you overcome it. And that's my advice to you today, is just do it. Nothing is standing in your way but yourself. All you got to do is just do it.
Great advice. I'm like tossing back in my head what I should say to you guys. The last thing ever. So pressure's on. What's a big
You can
question?
come back, Mandel, anytime you like.
There's so many things I want to leave with you guys. I will say that I think it's important for you guys to understand how you're forming your own identity. Right? Whether you define yourself as a student, as a teacher, as an educator, as an entrepreneur, whatever you are, like just attach also to that identity that you are an entrepreneur. Whether you recognize it or not, entrepreneurship is all about just coming up with new ways to solve old problems, right? Being opportunistic. And I'm sure there's a problem that you faced in your family, in your school, amongst your friends, where you're just thinking differently, right? About, we don't need to do this, you guys. Why don't we do this? Like, that's entrepreneurism, okay? That's what it is. It's just a mindset. And I don't want you guys to think that you have to take a certain course or you have to go to a certain program to even start thinking like an entrepreneur. It's really something that you can choose to be and choose to recognize that you already are. And with that said, I would say think about those problems that you do have. Maybe something that is constantly getting on your nerves or something that you want, right? I know my friend, he started a business, and maybe he'll tell you about it later, where he really was just passionate about clothing and design and being unique and standing out. And his first business was all about redesigning like Air Force Ones and just making them with different designs. And they went on, and LeBron James wore them, and that was his passion. So you guys just think about what you care about. Also think about problems that you have, and don't think that they're too small. It's never too small. It's a problem you have, and I guarantee you there are other people who share that problem, share that pain point. So what you need to do next is start talking about it. Don't be afraid to share your problem, share your vision, because you never know who may latch on and get excited about it and want to ride with you as well. So that'd be my advice.
Great advice. If I'm reading the clock correctly, 2 minutes for questions? So that's one question. 2 questions, 1 minute each. So who has a burning question that they'd like to ask Mandela or Felecia? Come on, raise your hand. Students, faculty, staff, right in front. Stand up, young man. Go ahead. Your minute's shortening. Go ahead. You're losing your minute.
Well, thank you for your speech today. Thank you for your presentation. My name is Sam Merlis, and I was just wondering if you were in a math field, like if your major was mathematics, what could you use to drive you into like business and education that'll be tech savvy, and what could you use?
If you're a math major, you can be very wealthy. Okay? Is math your major?
Yes.
Oh my God. So I encourage you to get involved. But hear from these folks. We can talk anytime. We'll talk
All
out.
right. So Sam, if no one is, Sam is your name? Okay, thank you for asking the question. His question for everyone to hear was, he's a math major and he wants to know if he was interested in building a business in education, how can he utilize his experience, expertise in math to actually develop something? And I would just say really quickly, so we can get to another question, is that the STEM field, science, technology, engineering, and math, is one of the fastest growing fields. So that in of itself means that there are a lot of companies who are interested in people with the math skill set, right? So what you can do is develop a program, and it's going to be up to you to decide if it's going to be for like elementary, middle school, high school, beyond. But there's so much about math, whether it's algebra or geometry, that you can design applications to help people progress. Just a real quick tip, a thing that I see is really great in working in math is personalized learning. Personalized means that the learning is for you. It's not for everybody, it's built just for you. So I'm not that good at math. I'm just gonna call that out. I'm not that good at math, so I'm probably gonna go a much slower pace than you, but what your technology can build is you can give me a tool that it helps me go at my own pace, and it helps you go at your own pace. We don't have to go at the same pace. So that's what I'll say.
Great question, and get yourself a team, Sam, but we'll talk after this event. One other quick question. Any other? All right. I hope you guys have gained a lot. Please thank our two amazing presenters. And stay tuned because there's a lot more to come. Thank you both.